I can see everybody that's here. We don't have minutes posted, so we have nothing to approve on the agenda. And does everybody have the agenda? And Andrew, you can find the agenda on, if you go to West Hartford Clean Energy and Clean Energy Commission on our site, you can find the agenda there.
Thank you.
If you can't, I'll put it up as a share. Catherine's got listed out here a couple administrative items. We have one vacancy, and that vacancy is under the sort of rules of organization for our commission must be filled, I should say, by a Republican, a member of the minority party. So far, we have not had any applicants who fit that bill, and as you'll see later in the conversation, we are really seriously talking about forming a new commission, and so I'm not too eager to fill that position until we get clarity on whether we are going to continue to exist as a solitary commission or whether we're going to be joined up with the Conservation and Environment and potentially the Pedestrian Bike Commission. So that's just a note. If a wonderful Republican appeared on the scene, they would certainly be welcomed. But in lieu of that clarity about the so-called super commission being formed, I'm not going to stress too much about filling the vacancy. The next agenda item is
Hey, Bernie,
yes,
are you
sir.
going to update us on where that stands later?
Yes, I am, and I'm putting it off, hoping that Catherine will show up. But if she doesn't show up, there's a few things I can say, and then there's a lot that she can add to it.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, but what I'd like to do tonight is share with you how I would see that commission working. Sort of, I think we all have a picture in our head, an org chart, and I would like to sort of amongst us talk through how it would actually operate in practice. So I definitely have some comments on that, and I'm sure everybody else does. One of the things that we've been trying to do is to increase the diversity of this commission in all the elements of diversity. One of those things is trying to get some young people on board. And last year we sent out an invitation to Conard and Hall. I think we had one person join for one meeting. It's possible we may have somebody named Nathaniel join us tonight, but so far Nathaniel hasn't joined us. And I think Catherine has a draft that she's going to send out to some Hall students and some Conard students. So that's still in process. And when I say it's in process, that invitation will be going out this month, soon. Old business, HeatSmart, which is a education outreach campaign on home efficiency and heat pump technology. We have a letter going out today or tomorrow to about 1,200 owners of buildings that are 2, 3, and 4 family, so not big apartment buildings, but like 2, 3, and 4 family homes, because they fit within the Eversource definition of small residential, and that's really where we're aiming. And in the past, we've sent letters directly out to residents, encouraging them to get a HES audit and talking about some of the material that we have to offer them to get their heads around energy efficiency. This time we went directly to those landlords because oftentimes, like if you imagine any of us being in a 2-family home, we might not feel like we're in a position to make recommendations on getting new windows or having a home energy solutions audit or just general upgrades because we're saying it's not our building. two things. We're hoping to educate or make the landowners, the building owners, aware of the fact that it's to their interest to take advantage of these programs, and it's to the tenants' advantage as well. So the reality is tenants can initiate this process with the okay of their landlords, and the landlords can initiate it with the okay of their tenants. So we just want to make sure that everybody knows that they can make some good progress. Dan Becerra, who is an occasional attendee of this commission, I believe has I could be wrong, but I think he has a multifamily home, and I think he's done some of this work. So, long-winded way of saying we're sending out a letter to multifamily home owners in West Hartford, and we're then going to send out another letter to folks that have air conditioning and heat with oil. We're basically going in chunks through the town. Next bullet point, I don't know, Stephen, I think you were originally going to bring your electric bicycle to the EV showcase, electric showcase.
Yeah, I was supposed to, and I just felt I was not feeling great at all, and said, you know what, I'm not going to contaminate everybody. So, well, I didn't make it.
I appreciate you taking care of us and not infecting us, but I think you would have liked it. We had it was one of the better ones. We partnered up with the Sunday farmers market. We had a full lot of EVs. We had what was kind of fascinating is we had a lot of lawn equipment. So we had several mowers. The town brought their large, I'll call it industrial scale lawnmower, electric lawnmower. John Phillips was there. Several other members of town staff were there. We had electric chainsaws, weed whackers, leaf blowers, all sorts of stuff. And I would say, I guess people oohed and ahed at the Tesla and were politely attending the HeatSmart booth. But I think the lawn equipment was the biggest draw. There were people just kind of fascinated by the electric lawnmower.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
It was a good event. When Catherine gets here, I'll dredge up some pictures and subject you to them. One of the highlights is I think it was Town Councilor Blanks. I think took a ride on an electric bike. She had I think she had a really good time. She was driving around the parking lot. I wasn't entirely sure we were going to get her off of the electric bike.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea why it is that the Rockledge Golf Course is still using gasoline powered machines? They have probably 30 or 40 of them over there. Wouldn't it be nice if they were electric? Most other golf courses have gone to electric for many different reasons.
I clearly don't know. I'm going to guess that their equipment is probably in good shape and they're going to turn things over as it wears out. That's my guess. And for some things, I think, I don't know how long well, they have quite an extensive area there, so there might be some range restrictions but that's a good question. David, I think you're more connected than any of us. So feel free to.
Yeah. Well,
oh, you went on mute again, Dave. There you go.
To run something electrically, you have to have the electric power available. It's most likely they don't have the electric service adequate at a golf course to do that for 30 to 40 machines. But once you've done it, then there's so many other good reasons to do it, if only to show the flag. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Well, I think, Stephen, you've pointed out that any move towards electrification has to actually address the problem that David brought up, namely the electric supply infrastructure has to keep pace with the demand. I don't know if lawnmowers and leaf blowers are going to overwhelm the grid, but the general point that you're bringing up, Dave, especially when you get to car chargers, is that we just can't throw chargers on without beefing up the supply. And I think, Max, I see you've joined. Welcome.
I'm here. Sorry I'm late.
Nope, that's great. Thank you for coming. One thing, HeatSmart is all about education for residents. We're talking about fancy stuff like electric vehicles and batteries and electrification and biodiesel and things like that. The most basic fundamental thing of all is to have a building that is well insulated and isn't leaky. So with sort of in that spirit, on October 20th, we're going to have a library insulation workshop. All of you would be invited, and as we'll start publicizing that pretty soon. But speaking for myself, but I'm going to guess every one of you on this call has lots of instances where you can just see flagrant examples of people's homes that are clearly not insulated, or where their buildings are clearly not properly air sealed. With regard to the latter, the case that I see as the winter comes upon us is you'll walk around West Hartford, doesn't matter what area of town you're in, you're going to see plenty of homes that leave their window air conditioners in all winter long, which is to say that they have a 15-inch by 18-inch hole in their wall, because an air conditioner is not a good insulator. That's the easy example for me to spot. I always restrain myself. I have not knocked on any doors, but I'm probably will this winter. and with regard to insulation, Joe, you as an architect certainly can. If you go around and look at people's roofs when you have some frost or some snow, you can look at where the snow melts and where it doesn't melt, and you can almost read the thermal signature of that house. And even in our town, which is well run, relatively well off, an amazing number of homes are just clearly not insulated. So I don't think a library event is going to solve that problem, but our hope is that we can at least get the ball rolling. I guess this next item, energy security for the winter, partner with the community emergency response team or social services. I guess what I'd like to do is maybe just have some conversation and do a little brainstorming. Stephen, I think you more than any of us, because you're tied into the fuels market. We have to look ahead at at this winter coming up, essentially starting now and going through February and March. And
Yep.
what's going to happen to supply and what's going to happen to price. And I don't want to have an idle conversation. I guess I want to just have a conversation about what we on this commission can do to get our residents ready. And Stephen, I don't know if you have any overall guidance or any thoughts on what's going to happen and any advice.
Well, I'll give you the same advice I gave Channel 3 today. If I knew what the price of oil was going to do this winter, I'd be a very wealthy guy. It's a publicly traded commodity. I don't know what Putin's going to do. I don't know what logistics are going to do. So there's no prediction of what price is going to do. I know Deep likes to tout, well, EIA says this, EIA says that, but they never get it right. And it's publicly traded. You never know. What you can do is, just deal with what the price is today. Get on a budget payment plan. to help spread out the payments, potentially lock in pricing for yourself on fuel side. Those are things to kind of help alleviate it. And then there's, Operation Fuel, CRT, a couple other places to help assist with some of the bills that are going to be coming in this winter. But the prices are nowhere near what they were, after when the war started with Putin.
Yeah. Yeah. If you knew the price of oil and could forecast it, you wouldn't even be on this commission, I'm sure.
No, I'd be on my boat in Miami right now.
Yeah, not
Living the life.
not today. You wouldn't be, I think.
Well, I would be. I'd be tying it down really extra tight. But
budget plans, I think that's a good idea. Lock it in if you can. I'm pretty familiar with Operation Fuel. Do you know what the requirement is for people to access Operation Fuel? Is it income driven?
I am not 100% sure, but I'm sure it's income. It's income driven between Operation Fuel, CRT, Community Action Renewal Team. There's a lot of different little Department of Social Services outfits throughout Connecticut that can help with energy assistance, whether it be oil, natural gas, propane, electric heat.
Yeah, electric is going to be expensive for sure, and that's locked in. So well, actually, it'll go up again in January, I'm sure. Okay.
Yeah, they'll reset it again in January. We'll see what happens.
It's going to go up. That's what's going to go. That's what's going to happen. Okay, Operation Fuel. What is CRT?
Community Renewal Action Team.
All right. All right. So anybody else have any thoughts on sort of actions that we can? What I'm envisioning is through Facebook. Renee McHugh has a pretty extensive mailing. I know that Catherine sits right next to the Director of Social Services, and I think through those various channels, we can just make sure that people, like you said, Stephen, if we can just look ahead a little bit, maybe we can hunker down and pay our way through this. I'm also going to try to insulate our way through this.
The old saying, Bernie, I guess falls on both sides, is the best energy greenhouse gas reduction is energy we don't use through insulation, and the best savings on energy usage is energy we don't need to use too.
No, yep, that's one hymn book that we're all singing from. I agree. I have tried to reach out to this community emergency response team. It's, I think, Bob McHugh. Does anybody know him? I think he was former assistant chief of police, I think, or maybe it was a chief. But I'm gonna try to reach out to those guys. Stephen, if you don't mind, if I do get an appointment, I might connect you in there too, just because I think you're a hands-on guy with the fuel. Because their whole thing is, if we have a blackout, if we have some sort of emergency, they're meant to help residents. And so I'm thinking this is one of those things where energy overlaps with community resilience, and so we can sort of all work together. Okay. Anybody has a brilliant idea, or even a not brilliant idea, just as the meeting goes on, just blurt it out. And thank you. I think I got some good stuff here, Stephen. Elmwood Community Center is, Joe and I were talking, there's been a series of advisory committees and a series of community presentations. they're really looking to take what's now the Elmwood Community Center and the Faxon Branch Library. Really, I don't know what they're going to do with those buildings, but they're going to move both of the functions in those buildings to 100 Mayflower Street, which is the site of St. Bridget's School. They've got Tecton. Joe, what is it? Tecton Architects?
Architects.
And they're basically doing a feasibility study. So they're taking input from the community, which is pretty impressive to see. They've got representatives from Clean Energy. So that's Joe and Catherine and myself. They've got the senior center. They've got the schools, the library, the health center, neighborhood folks. And it's really impressive to see all these people use this building, and they really just bring their points of view to what the building should do. And I guess at the highest level, there's two main options on the road. They can on the table. They can take the existing St. Bridget's School. Have you all seen that? It's a 1960s, 1950s style building, pretty old. It sits
never seen it.
between two, what do you call them? Not swamps.
Wetlands.
Wetlands. That's it. Thank you. So there's not a whole lot of room to actually broaden that building out. So option one is to sort of build on to that older building, and the second option is a new building. I think there's a lot more enthusiasm for a new building. And I think with one more advisory committee on October 27th, and I think they're going to present sort of there's a feasibility study to the town council. And then I think they'll hire an architect who will actually develop plans and start building the thing.
Hey, Bernie, I'm in the Elmwood Business Association. So I think they pretty much made their mind. They're going to tear down the building and put a new one up.
I agree. That's what it seems like.
And the old senior center and the library, I believe they're going to try and sell them.
Okay.
Although I'm not so sure about the senior center. And our organization is pushing hard to realign a couple of the streets there because the traffic's a nightmare. And the tee up from where Quaker comes into New Britain Avenue, and then on the Newington Road, jogs on and off of New Britain Avenue and try and tee it up. And so the new road may swing around through the current senior center. But they think, it's going to be sold or redeveloped or something. That in the library.
Yeah. Yeah. The current Elmwood Community Center, which I guess is an old school itself, I could see somebody doing something with that building. The Faxon Branch is kind of an unusual building. I'm not sure what they would do with it, but I'm not an architect. So you're pretty sure they're going to sell both of those?
Yeah, that's what they've indicated.
All right.
Stephen, is that the Faxon Library you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Bernie, concerning that intersection, I think what Steve was trying to say, I'm not sure that this is what you were saying, Steve, but is it Newington Road that goes out from?
Yeah.
They want to make that a T or a across the road intersection.
Well,
so that
they
it's
want to tee it up so you don't have.
Well, it is a T now.
From traffic.
Yeah, I think
No,
they
it's
want to
not.
make it. Oh.
Now, if you come off the end of Quaker, you have to take a
Yeah.
right or left. There's a little side street that goes straight, but you really have to
That's
take a
not a
left
T?
and then a right.
That
No.
seems like a T to me.
Well, I think
No, because that's not what they don't refer to that as a T.
Oh.
It's like a jog on and off, but they want to line it up so it's like one traffic light to get all the way through.
yeah, I think there's actually two T's there where Quaker hits hits New Britain, and you have to take a left and then take a right onto Newington. So you got, if they could go through the parking lot of what used to be the Elmwood Theater and sort of just go right into Newington Road, I think somebody's gonna have to give a parking lot or a building to make that happen, but it would be a lot smoother if they could make it happen.
Yeah, Elmwood's a pain in the butt every afternoon and every morning with traffic. That would make a big help.
Yeah, yep, I think I agree. It's not directly on the agenda, but something I would recommend that all of you take a look at, and I'm going to put this up to Catherine and Bob Palmer. On Saturday, Manchester, Connecticut opened up their Buckley School, which I think was it's a kindergarten, it's an elementary school, basically, a kindergarten class. They took an old building, so as old as like Norfelt, and they reconditioned it. They sunk geothermal wells. They improved the building shell. They swapped out the windows, and the thing is now a net zero building. So, and it's I walked through the halls, and it's nice. Now I'm not a third grader. Mentally, perhaps I am a third grader, but chronologically, I'm not a third grader. So, but I think they had a lot of third graders and kindergartners there, and they seemed pretty taken with it. It's what's impressive is that they did it with that building, and then I talked to a resident there, Gene DeJoannis, who's an engineer, and he said the next 2 building renovations are going to be to take existing schools and do the same thing and turn them net zero. Joe, I don't know if you ever heard of anybody named O&G. Is that a name that rings a bell?
Yeah, they're one of the largest contractors in the state, I think.
Yeah, they were the contractor on this. So
yeah, I've been a little disappointed that the push has been towards brand new. I understand the reasons behind it, and I just hope that the majority of the reason is ease of design, and I don't know, they really haven't talked too much about costs of yet. So I think that's going to come up next, is what it costs to demolish the building and replace it. I've always thought that if you could rewrap that building, you could solve one of the issues, which is the thermal envelope. But it's the spaces and using the program, fitting the program. So it's a lot more than just making the envelope energy efficient.
what they did out here, the thermal barrier, they spray foamed the inside, I guess. So they changed. If you don't mind, I'll show you a couple pictures. So this is the bricks are the same, but the windows were taken out. They're double paned. In some cases, they put these little shades. This is Peter Millman. This is me. Other windows, they put this translucent but energy efficient material. So when you're on the inside, and I'll show you the inside, it looks nice, but it's more energy efficient. So this is a picture of the inside of the classroom. They got these windows, which are just regular double pane. They swapped out the single pane and they put these translucent guys in. My wife is a teacher. She said she noticed that you can't open the windows. So that was in my wife Nancy's book, that was a strike against this.
Except that we've talked about that, right, Bernie?
There's a lot of, go ahead, Joe. It's
Well, just that when you make these airtight, you have to ventilate them, mechanically ventilate them with fresh air. So, you know, the need to open a window because you want fresh air in the room, it's not required.
Yes.
Right? And it doesn't mean that you can't have operating windows. You can. It just goes to helping to unbalance the system that's in place. And a lot of the energy efficiency is because it's balanced and it's not changing. Temperatures don't change.
Yep.
And the quality of the air is excellent.
What I don't have a picture of it, but I asked about that point, and there's on the roof is a balanced air exchanger with what they call an ERV, energy recovery ventilation system. So the fresh air comes in, absorbs the heat, or
It's conditioned
is conditioned. So you might lose some of your
by what's being exhausted.
Yes. So the fresh air comes in, and I think they can vary how much fresh air. So if you're having COVID or monkeypox or pandemic of du jour, you can put in more air if required, and keep from blowing it out like we're doing now in town. This is nothing dramatic, but the heat is supplied by a geothermal, and the cooling will be supplied by a geothermal system. The little classroom are really nifty. 70 degrees, so it really was very comfortable. It was absolutely comfortable in this thing. I'll spare you the pictures of the bathroom, but they have no flush urinals, and there's a high-tech approach to that. Solar panels, you really have to go out of your way to see them. You peek through here, you can see them. This is Gene Joannis. He's actually the guy that got this whole idea started. So through that window, you can see him.
This is in Hartford?
This is in Buckley, which is Manchester. Manchester out. This room, it was 80. My wife was intrigued because there was a student named Nancy, and
$76.
Joe or anybody, but I think Joe mostly. Construction manager is O&G. Architect is TSKP Studios. So just figured out.
Hey, Bernie,
Yes,
do you have a cost that the town spent to do this, and what they're looking at in energy savings?
I don't, but I'm looking for those, because the question that you're putting on the table is what the town council is going to put on the table. And I'm assuming that they had to go through those metrics to get this approved. I know the state probably supplied half the funds, but I don't know. The short answer is I don't know, but that's an important question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we need to bring to the town. Like our Charter Oak School is similar to this, correct?
Charter Oak School, so is the only building that we have is comparable to this, but it was a brand fresh, knock down the building and build a new one, right? Is that right, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, it wasn't a retrofit.
So
No.
and
they tore down the other building.
And Joe, I think one reason that architects and building people really want to keep the old buildings is there's so much embodied carbon in there. That they talk about some large percentage of a building. Some of it comes from burning fuel to keep it warm and cold and stuff, but some of it comes from making the cement and all that. And if you have a building for 80 years, like half the carbon that you produce is when you built the thing. So if you tear it down, you're really adding a whole bunch of carbon back into the mix.
And what do you do with the waste? There are ways of recycling, but I don't think they're going to take all the mortar off those bricks and reuse them. So that's just going into a landfill and. Yeah,
If
we'll
Catherine
see.
was here, I know she's amongst all of us the keenest on water runoff and management. And since they made their parking lots fresh, they put these
Wells.
Thank you. Yes. Anyway, enough of my photos here, but so this is out in Manchester. Stop sharing. But we've consistently put on the table that this new Elmwood Community Center ought to be net zero building. They've nodded, but I think secretly in their town's mind, they might be saying, well, let's see how much it costs. And one reason I want to show them this is it's certainly possible. And I don't think it's that much more expensive, if it's that much more expensive at all. Okay. Last time we just this natural gas leaks. Sam Dynowski from Sierra had gotten for us through a FOIA request gas leaks from 2016. We kind of reviewed them last time. Stephen, you had asked some questions that I did talk to Sam, but she's not here. There are clearly many more leaks than are reported. So that was, I think, one of your points. And I don't know, I think you'd also raised the fact that some leaks are required to be fixed and others are not. So I really have nothing to add to this point, other than that we're in possession of a spreadsheet that has the number of gas leaks from 2016.
Yeah, and on your, if you have natural gas, there's a line item for lost and unaccounted for gas. So the gas company gets to charge the consumers for the gas that they leak out everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So any halfway intelligent business guy would say, geez, why would I fix it if I get paid for it if it pours all over the place?
Exactly. And let me pause. And David Petrella, are you on? Are you listening to this?
I am on, yes.
I don't know if are we being recorded or anything like that? Did I have to remind you to do that?
Yes, I went live right when you began the meeting and we're recording.
All right. Thank you for making up for my absent-mindedness.
No problem.
All right. Jumping down to new business. We thought we were going to have Roszena Haskins, who are Executive Director of Equity Advancement, at this meeting, but she had a conflict, so she will be at the next meeting. I'm excited for a couple reasons. One, I'm hoping that she can give us some insight into how to make this our commission more connected to the community, potentially get members from communities that aren't represented. Even if we don't do that, have us be more effective at engaging with people who need it. It isn't for lack of trying that we're not too diverse. So I'm hoping when we have an expert that she can help us with that. I also think she's going to, when we finally get the other two commissions to have another organizational meeting, I'm hoping that she will be part of that as well. Just trying to go, let me just go through. If I can, for just, so many of the other items are really Catherine Davini. We really need her there, but I guess we last time basically voted in that this group was in favor of the super commission idea. So the next logical step is, okay, what does that actually mean? And I think, Stephen, all along you've been kind of a proponent of that. So what I'd like to do is, I'm gonna show you a PowerPoint, but it's meant as a discussion starter, not as a discussion ender. I'm just kind of playing out how I think it works, and I guess I would ask you to join in and help me conceptualize. Pretend we put these commissions together. What does it look like? How does it operate month to month? What do we do that's different than what we're doing now? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right now, the conservation environment is, they were committed, they were conceived, what's the word? They were established by ordinance. So they're actually written into the laws, the ordinances of West Hartford. We were set up by, I'll call it decree. That's not the right word, but we're not yet an ordinance. So they are actually the stronger way of formation. And we actually, as Catherine has reminded us, we need to be reestablished. And there's some things about how we operate that have to change. So what I'm basically saying here is, we take the charter, the broad charter that the Conservation and Environment Commission has now, and we broaden it out. And I'm sure they have ideas of things that they think they should be doing. From the perspective of us here tonight, we just have to add energy to their charter. So arguably energy is already included on their charter, but I would just make it explicitly so. I want to say again, this is just me thinking day one, what happens? All current commissioner members are appointed to the super commission on day one. So Steve, Joe, Dave, Bernie, Max, you're on. You can get off. I'm not trying to be Putin and constrict and force people into doing things, but just the four of us would move on. Nothing against Catherine and Bob, but technically, as town staff, they can't be on a commission. You have to be somebody who can vote to be on a commission in West Hartford. So Catherine would still be our liaison to the town, but she wouldn't be a member of this commission. And just to sort of look across the aisle at our fellow commissions, Richard Bush, Sean Daly, Jim Fishman, Emily, Kimberly, Ted Newton, Ronnie, and Emily Scott, who is their chairperson. So there's how many of them? It says 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of them. And the pedestrian bike, Ed, Daniel, Colin, Paul, Ken, and Jill, assuming they're all on. As we've said a lot of times, I think they are reluctant to join, so they might not join. So I don't know if these people are interested in joining, but if everybody wanted to join, this would be sort of the lineup. I guess my thought is that we would appoint standing subcommittees and allow the commission to set up subcommittees if need be. So I would think we would have an energy commission, energy subcommittee. So we'd go from being a full commission to being a subcommittee. However, all of us are members of this broader group. Make sense so far? Okay. I think I counted wrong, didn't I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, no, that's a total of 19. Somehow we have to define a quorum. I don't know how to do that, but I just said, take the existing number of commissioners, divide by 2, and add 2. So take 19 divided by 2, that's 9.5, add 2, you need a quorum of 11.
And then I want you.
Okay, and then, okay, so how do we operate? Right now, we meet almost every month. Sometimes we don't, but most of the time we do. And I guess this is where it really impacts all of us on this call. There would continue to be monthly meetings of the subcommittees on the first 2 months of the quarter. So January and February, we meet as the Energy Commission. Maybe Joe, if there was a building subcommittee, you might be on that. You know, I don't know if there was if there's a waste or materials handling, I would probably want to join that. But whatever subcommittees we'd have would meet on the first 2 months of the quarter, and then on the 3rd month, so March or June, we'd have a full commission meeting. So the all 19 of us hopefully would get together and share ideas, talk about things, and to the extent that any of us had anything that needed to be approved, I have 2 categories of that, it would be approved by this bigger group. I think the areas where we can operate sort of with autonomy would be if we want to do a study, if we want to look at methane gas, if we want to do studies on net zero schools, anything like that. But if we want to go out to the public, or if we want to go up to the town council, we'd have to wait till that 3rd meeting. But, and Steve, everything that came through any of these committees would be discussed at that March or June or September or December meeting, and we'd all have a chance to weigh in on these things. So it wouldn't be that some stuff snuck through this commission and we thought it was ours, but it was somebody else's. Before anything went to the town council or out to the residents of West Hartford, it would go through this whole committee.
I think it's pretty interesting, the idea of the meeting cadence that you've come up with. I think that's creative. I'm trying to think about any reasons that wouldn't work. It's at least seems to me like a worthwhile approach at the outset.
Yeah, thank you, Max. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is find out what's wrong with this. So, yeah, we're obviously just talking amongst ourselves, but I would hope that we could present something along these lines to the broader group, because I think we can't just say this is okay, Shazam, we're a super commission and everything takes care of ourselves. We sort of have to think this through. But I guess I would say, if in the middle of the night you wake up screaming, I see what's wrong, we should let it go.
The nice thing about it, Bernie, is even if, let's say, there's something in here that's not right, it's totally flexible to change it.
Yeah.
And so it's not etched in stone and there's no varying off of this. What I do see wrong is that we're still talking about this when I think it's pretty clear that us and the other commission are all for this. And I think it's very clear the bike and head want nothing to do with us, which is fine. They want to do their own thing, great. Do your own thing. But our 2 commissions joining together and reducing the amount of commissions in the town is a great thing to do.
That's where I am, and I share I don't think anybody's doing anything wrong, but I do feel impatient. I guess I want to get agreement on ourselves. If we get together soon with Catherine and the town and Rick Ledwith and the other commissions, I'm hoping either we make a decision or we kick it down for another 6 months. I guess I don't want to. It's not like you're John Hancock and you're Ben Franklin. This isn't a constitutional Congress, I guess.
That was very, very flexible, both commissions, and I think both of our commissions are, by and large, are very much for putting these two groups together.
Yeah, that's the body language I have. But I haven't heard officially from those guys. It seems to me, I bounced this off of Catherine the other day before I put it on the agenda, and she said this Rick Newton had this. This was essentially, no, sorry, Ted Newton had really said this idea. So maybe he said it, and I just thought it was my idea. I don't know. Okay. Okay. Dave or Joe, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what we had talked about, so I agree that it'd be nice to get it done.
That's kind of where I am. Good. Okay.
Are we allowed to have a offline meeting with our groups and just kind of hash this thing out and kind of put a plan together and go to the town and say, here?
I don't know if we can do that offline, but I think we can do it like we've done 2 other times. We can have a meeting devoted to it. And I
That's
think
pretty much what this meeting is. You've been asked to rehash this with the commission, your
Yes.
commission party.
that's right. We've been,
So, yeah, we just have to report back and hope that the Conservation and Environmental Commission did the same thing.
and
Okay,
I
great.
anticipate sometime in October, Catherine and the other town staff will get us together and we can do the thing that you said, Steve, get that going. I think 7:58. I think then that was the update on Sustainability Commission. Energy. Catherine has some things here, joint letter to Arpa sustainability projects. She's going to have to speak to that. And there are some federal funds that I think she wants to have us make a recommendation on, or perhaps just approved what she's already suggesting. Give her a few more minutes. I think she said she'd be here around 8, so I'm hoping that she'll show up. I think that's pretty much what we'll wait. Maybe a few more minutes for Catherine, and then go there.
Maybe you could just talk, Bertie, a little bit about what we've been doing in the past to give Andrew some background and how we're saving the town some money and
Yeah. So Andrew, we were set up. Actually, Joe, you were here. I think either at the very beginning or shortly thereafter. The town set this up initially as a task force.
yeah, it was a resolution.
So resolution, that's the word I was looking for before that, and then set us up by resolution as a commission about 3 or 4 years ago. And our job was initially really to advise the town on how to save energy, how to pull in more clean energy, and how to share the savings with the town. I think those are our 3 charters. And Joe, you were here during, I came in 2013, but every building has had an engineer. We brought in a contractor. Name escapes me at the moment. Peregrine was the contractor. They did an evaluation of all the buildings in the municipal fleet, schools, and town buildings. Made, I'm going to say, several hundred recommendations. So ranging from small, like clean your steam traps, fix your steam traps, to, change your heating system. Over time, initially they were going to be the general contractor on that. The town has a pretty skilled engineering staff, so we actually became our own general contractor and have made lots of improvements over time. It's worth noting, and this came out in the last meeting, that many of the improvements were to tighten up the buildings, so better windows, less leaks, that sort of thing. Along comes COVID, especially in the schools, and the direction from the state and the direction just as human beings that have children and care about children was, you got to get more fresh air into these buildings. So a lot of the work that we did was actually sidelined or stymied by COVID. So our bills, which had been going down, our consumption, which had been going down, in some cases has actually gone back up, because the requirement is to get more fresh air in there. And one of the challenges, it's easy to get fresh air in a building, right? All you have to do is knock a hole in the wall or run the fans longer. And we've been running fans overnight. We're heating that air. So one of the things we have before us is to have energy recovery ventilation systems so that we get more fresh air in, but we don't lose all the conditioned air. We've got renewables up on half of our buildings, I'm gonna guess, at this point.
Some we own, some we don't own. Some are purchase power agreements.
Yeah, the majority of the big systems are purchase power agreements. I think we have a couple little systems that were sort of gifted to us. So we started.
We replaced the street lighting. That was a big thing, where we cut our electric use by 3/4. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say 3/4 is right. We had 6,000 streetlights roughly. We own our streetlights, which was a big help. And over time, we've replaced. I actually have one streetlight about a mile from my house. I know where it is. Where they must have missed it, because it's still one of the high pressure sodiums. But they were replaced with LEDs, so that was a big deal. A big deal.
It's really interesting. I guess it's, as we think about all the things you guys are talking about, right, they all require investment on the part of the town. Have you found that the town has been supportive and willing to invest in all these products or projects, or are they primarily looking for things to be cost neutral and offset entirely by energy savings? Like, yeah, I guess generally, how supportive are they of their recommendations?
I would just say that they're not, I mean, they're concerned about the payback period, but they've been very receptive at spending money to save money.
Right.
And they understand that concept. And what Bernie was talking about, all of the energy upgrades that we did on the municipal and the Board of Ed buildings, that was a large sum of money that they committed. I don't know, was it 4 million, Bernie, for projects? And they understood that would be, kind of paid back over the increase in efficiency of the heating systems and air conditioning systems, and they were willing to go with it.
Mm-hmm. And all the projects are one-offs, or is there like a set sort of clean energy investment budget that you guys automatically get renewed and can provide guidance on how to use in any given year?
Isn't I would call it, maybe Catherine would tell me I'm wrong, but I don't think there is a comprehensive budget. There's
that
a,
we get to use.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Be
that makes
nice.
sense. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and there was at one time we thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to have, a wealthy philanthropist, someone like David Chase, that could set up a fund that could be tapped by businesses and even homeowners and for energy related renewable energy projects and kind of fund itself. But for whatever reason, I don't think we ever had the nerve to approach anything like that or understand it. Maybe that's something that you would understand better than we do. But
Not at the moment, but it's a great idea, right? I mean, and it doesn't have to necessarily just be one person, right? But use a series of fundraisers each year to try and build an investment fund. Yeah.
and to a certain extent, as we look ahead and we are less internally focused, the Inflation Reduction Act is maybe is that bucket of money. I mean, there's a lot of money in there. It's not entirely clear to me how it's going to get to us. But I that's part of our challenge, I think, is to make sure that we take advantage of that, because there's a lot of money there. One thing that is worth noting, Stephen is an energy dealer in town, and so one of the things that he brings to this is when you think of heating oil, which is traditionally been one of the villains in the clean energy world, is a villain, I guess. But Stephen, you might want to talk a little about bioheat and biodiesel. Maybe he doesn't.
No, I'm here. Sorry, my internet kind of froze up. I missed some of what you were saying, Bernie.
Oh, I was just going to say, we were just sort of describing our past initiatives, and I think it might have been 2 years ago when you first, even before you were on the commission, that you brought up the potential of bioheat to help begin to clean up the heating sector, and you've got a future direction. So maybe just talk a little about that.
So my company we push a lot of biodiesel, which is a renewable fuel made from either a waste product or a virgin product like a soybean oil. And it's a direct replacement for fuel oil with about an 80% greenhouse gas emissions reduction. And we just got last year passed in a law a biodiesel mandate for heating oil in Connecticut, where now we're at a minimum of a 5% blend, and by 2035 going up to a 50% blend of heating oil and biodiesel in homes.
So we're coming at this every which way. We're renewable energy, classic sense, biofuels, which right, Stephen, you can go up to 20%, right, of heating oil can be biodiesel.
You can push harder than that, 30, 40. Some are doing 50. Some are, there's some doing 100% right now.
Yeah.
But that's doing up to a 40 or 50% blend in your current heating system, if you're an oil heat user, can be done no problem without any upfront costs.
Right.
And then the residential HeatSmart, I'm not sure that Andrew knows about that.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of what we've talked about up to now has been focused on the town. I've been looking for a clean energy plan, but I actually think it's no longer on the website, which is something we got to fix. But if you across business, residential, and municipal, the municipal sector, schools and town, was energy-wise about 5% of the entirety of the town. So business and residents are sort of like 47% each of the energy picture, counting electricity, gas, oil, and heat transportation fuel. So we as a commission kind of said, well, it's great that we started by focusing on the town, which is a good place to start. You can lead by example is the term that they use. But let's start doing outreach to the community. So from my perspective, it started in 2013. We had a Solarize campaign where we, at the end of it, I think we got between 70 and 80 solar systems up on people's homes. And that was from so we started moving that. And then we've had various outreaches, whether they be library events or I guess maybe one of the most innovative ones was, get the name of the group, but they basically on a January night drove every street in West Hartford with an infrared camera.
Sage.
Energy Sage, that's what it was? Energy Sage. They drove through, took a picture of
Sagewell.
Sagewell. I thought that was the most creative idea, but they took a picture essentially of every house. I think they missed a few. I think, ironically enough, oh, Catherine's here. They missed Max's street, as I recall. Chris Nelson and Max, they missed your houses, but
They got us eventually because I have my image.
you have your image.
Yeah, they did get us.
But we basically had a promo. We sent out to residents all the said, if you identify yourself, if you say I'm Andrew Kohlmeyer and I live on such and such a street, and somehow satisfied them that you indeed were this person that you say you are, you get your image, and you could. It looked sort of like a haunted house. It looked a little bit like the Amityville Horror. You have leaks show up as red. Well insulated things show up as blue, and a lot. I don't know, Max, what your house looked like, but I had a lot of red on my home, a lot of red and yellow. So that was outreach, and that was to drive people to get HES audits. We've had a series of attempts to meet the business community with a program. HeatSmart, basically, we're going to reach out to every resident in West Hartford, say, get a HES audit, make your home more efficient, check out whether for air conditioning and or for heat, what a heat pump can do for you. Stephen is connected to the business community. Stephen, who was the group that we met with the business? Jack Cunningham, right? Was the group?
Environmental ESC.
ESC, which is a West Hartford company that deals with commercial folks. So they came in. We partnered with the Chamber of Commerce. So basically, our approach is to continue to focus on the municipal, and that's what Catherine does all day long, but also to try to get our residents and our businesses to up their game. And Catherine, I looked on our website, and I do not think our current energy plan is there anymore. We have the 2009 energy plan. So,
That was very helpful. Thank you for giving me some background. Appreciate it.
yeah, well, I enjoyed the trip down memory lane, so thank you.
It's nice to have a new face.
Catherine, I've talked about almost everything except the joint letter, federal legislation, and the staff report. So if you want to, and I also didn't share the renewed invitation to the students for student representation.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I apologize again for being late. I was at my son's open house at high school, which is still going on. So Bernie, I'm sorry if the energy plan is not there. I'll have to check. Maybe when we took down some of the energy pages and migrated over to the sustainability page, that link got moved or broken or something like that. So I'll look at that because that definitely should be up there. That's interesting. Thank you for noticing.
No, I wanted to show it to Andrew, and it might be on the sustainability page, so I'll look for that.
Yeah, or it might not be. And if so, I apologize. We'll get that back up shortly. Fleshing out that website is also a to-do list item that always seems to get shoved to the back. So where were you again? You wanted to do the
Well, why don't we go with the joint letter to support ARPA sustainability projects? Do you want to talk through that?
Sure. So so this is a letter. This is a letter that was suggested that maybe, and I can share my screen in the middle of this, but it was suggested in light of collaboration between the two commissions and kind of our discussion about potentially merging, that this might be a nice intersection of something that we could do together right now to kind of show the collaboration and also to assist conservation and environment, maybe energize them a little by providing an actionable item that they could vote on and move forward, because they've been struggling a little bit with their identity and working on things. So this is a letter that was crafted that would be signed jointly, but it's been vetted by high-level staff too, so it's not coming out of the blue, but that would be signed by Bernie and as chair of Clean Energy and Emily Scott as chair of Conservation and Environment. It's basically something that the town council is working on anyway, to allocate, and they've been doing it in different waves, appropriating the ARPA funds, the American Rescue and Recovery Act funds, that the town's been allocated. The town gets about $37 million in ARPA recovery funds. This was post-COVID money. And to date, about 12.2 million of that funding has been allocated, and there's a list of projects in the queue. One of those projects, and the counselors are kind of appropriating the money little bits at a time. I think I told this commission at one point in time that different departments were asked to put forward projects. Bob Palmer and I, Bob, the director of plant and facilities, and I put forward a whole host of energy efficiency related and ventilation related projects for schools, which did not make the ARPA funding list. The town decided to keep those in the CIP bucket, the capital improvement projects budget, and so they weren't allocated for additional or ARPA funding. But there were other projects that are on the list. Some of the work that's been doing on the center, some economic development work, assisting businesses that really lost out during COVID. So I'm not an expert on what all that is being funded, but that's going through council. There are some projects on the list, and I'll share my screen now, that are sustainability related. There are $140,000 worth of sustainability projects. This funding is not directly in the clean energy realm, but the projects are going to a tree canopy study.
Hey, Catherine?
Yes.
Do you have
Did you
like a
see
little black box up there? I can see a little black box that says rearrange videos in the stage. Is that something you can say?
Oh, that's not.
That's on your screen, Bernie. I thought the same thing, and then I clicked it and it went away.
Oh, okay. So it's on my screen. Okay. Thank you.
Can
I
you
was
see
about to
my
ask you to
screen now?
remove it earlier.
Yeah, no, it's just something that pops up on our screen.
You see a letter in front of you guys now?
Yep.
Yes, we see it.
Is
Yep.
it large
Thank you.
enough to see?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So perhaps I should just read this aloud. The idea would be for us to agree or vote on as a commission whether Bernie, whether we should as a group decide that Bernie should sign this and co-sign potentially with Emily. But the idea is that we just be recommending to the council that they move these $140,000 worth of sustainability projects, which are a tree canopy study townwide, pollinator gardens in various locations throughout town, and stormwater management rain gardens throughout town. That total $140,000 worth of this $37 million worth in ARPA funding, and just elevate them from the proposed project list by actually committing the ARPA funds, appropriating the ARPA funds to them the next time they do an appropriation of that funding. So it's not much. I don't think there's much disagreement that even within the council that these projects should not get funded. But it's a letter of recommendation and support that might kick this forward more quickly. And it also just shows the kind of collaboration that's going on between our committees. So this letter just says we would like to encourage council to move forward with the appropriation of ARPA funds for $140,000 worth of sustainability projects, which are still on the proposed list. As two commissions that operate in the realm of sustainability, we highly support these projects. We understand the next round of allocations will be discussed shortly, and we are prepared to work closely with you and any council standing committees to ensure these projects are part of the next council resolution. The sustainability projects include, as I just said, tree canopy study, pollinator, and the descriptions are on page 2. They also include educational and outreach components, which include a focus on low-income communities. These, you can read it here. They're a small yet critical piece of the town's $37 million allocation. And these projects will have a big impact past COVID, where our focus on outdoor spaces has been renewed. More importantly, these projects directly, and this is where I think it brings it together for maybe both commissions, the spaces where our areas overlap. It supports critical elements for the town, including ecological stewardship, climate resilience, education, and environmental justice. It's almost certain that a tree canopy study will show that there is less shade cover and reduced access to natural amenities in lower income areas of West Hartford, and this work will provide a foundational baseline for planning of future work. And it just goes on to say members of our commission, staff, and a host of other organizations. Now, this is, again, maybe an idea setting us up for kind of how we can collaborate in work groups with outside entities as well. There are organizations like West Hartford Garden Club, Tree Action Group, and Friends of West Hartford Parks who also support these projects and are willing to mobilize. This is important work. It aligns with Sustainable Connecticut. And when we look at what towns across Connecticut are doing in these areas, when you look at their reports on Sustainable Connecticut, you can see that West Hartford is falling behind. Maybe that's a little strong. So I'm throwing this out there for you guys. And so that's the gist of the letter. You guys can see it there. And the idea would be for Bernie and Emily to sign this. Again, I think these projects are already moving. They have not been appropriated yet. They are still on the proposed project list. But I think this is a nice letter of support and shows how these two commissions intersect and could work together maybe more closely in the future.
Is there money to act on the outcomes of the tree canopy study?
Not that I know of. It would probably need to be requested in future budgets or grant applications. I mean, I do know that leisure services and public works have money set aside for tree plantings. I'm sure it's in their budget every year. But if something large was to occur, just like they've allocated money for the actual creation of these gardens here, if they were going to do a larger project as a result of the tree canopy study, it would need it to be budgeted for, or additional funds, whether they were from federal funding sources again or other grants, would probably need to be identified.
Is there Would it be too much ask to put money into this ask or actually planting trees?
I
And creating rain gardens and, you know,
Well, it seems like the request here is to actually implement pollinator gardens and implement rain gardens, but not plant trees, just to study about where we need to plant trees.
yes,
Right.
for right now. I think some of these other organizations do plant trees and offer seedling programs for residents. I can't answer that question, Max. I
Okay.
would have to go back to Helen and ask her the follow-on. I think what was intended for the first $50,000 is for the study to happen, kind of an educational component about what the study shows,
Uh-huh.
you know, and then developing an action plan of how to act on what the study shows. So I think also I did hear that with these ARPA funds, the council has been appropriating the money as it's ready to be spent. They don't want to appropriate it and then have it sit for a while. So I think maybe, again, they want to keep it to the stuff that we can actually implement right away, which would be doing the study, not planting the trees, which would happen down the road.
Gotcha.
It's my intent.
Catherine, no, I think Max raises a good point, and I think we could I don't think we can have our cake and eat it too, but something along those lines where you say this work will provide a foundational baseline for planning and future work. Just maybe if we just rework that and say, we anticipate the study would consist of an assessment of the status quo and provide a recommendation for implementation. So
Yeah,
get it to be more action oriented, because if truthfully, and I bet you I speak for all of us, if this is just a bunch of studies and nothing happens, then
no. The gardens and the stormwater, those are actual projects. The
okay.
tree canopy study is a study. So this is one study and like 10 or 11 projects. Actual gardens planted in the ground.
Gotcha. Okay, I would just say then, just rework that sentence a little bit.
Oh, here they are. Sorry, I should have pulled this up for you.
Oh, there they are. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
let's read this thing. We'll support Sam.
So the study would provide information on tree coverage, identify species diversity and conditions. Yeah, and this is a thing too. I don't think they know what trees they would want to plant till they see what's out there, you know.
That makes sense. Oh yeah, we
speakers,
definitely need
things
the
like
study
that.
for sure.
Yeah,
I think you're
but
right,
the
makes sense.
rain garden money is for, you know, to install a garden. And the pollinator gardens are to install pollinator gardens, at least 5 or 6 of them.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if we could buy a sentence at the end of that urban tree canopy just to say, and provide a recommendation for action.
And future funding, right?
Mhm.
Is what you guys are saying. Like, don't forget that this is going to be recommendations for future projects that will need funding, right?
Yep.
Okay. That's a great idea.
That's good.
And
So right.
one minor comment, it says APRA instead of ARPA.
Nice. Thank you.
I'll just make
Max, that's not a minor comment.
I mean, it's not minor to ARPA.
I'll just make a minor comment. When I came to West Hartford, which is a long time ago now, I was really impressed with the trees on Farmington Avenue in the town center. I don't know who picked them, but they seem to be just the right size. When they shed their leaves, they don't make an awful mess. And they're beautiful, and I've always kind of loved those trees. So anyway, enough of my nostalgia there.
Easy.
You know, on that note, we had our block party a couple weekends ago, and you know, we're chatting with neighbors, lamenting how yet another person on our street had to take down their big old tree in their front yard. And one of my neighbors that's been here for a couple decades talked about what a, you know, beautiful green tunnel it was when they bought their house, and that was what attracted them to it. And more than half of the big trees are gone. So, I know there used to be one in front of my house, and then my neighbors across the street had to take theirs down earlier this year, and it's just heartbreaking. And we're all replacing them with, you know, dogwood trees and Japanese maples and little things. There's not big oak trees and maples going up and whatever in their place. So I don't know what to make of that, but I suddenly am feeling this sense of urgency that this town with the beautiful big trees is not going to have them for much longer.
You know, and Max, when I lived on in Elmwood, there were trees all along New Britain Avenue. There've been a lot of renovation there, but there aren't that many trees down New Britain anymore. It's just kind of wide open, and you know, energy. It's been demonstrated that heat island effect, which is going to be more of an issue time going on, really is reduced when you have these trees. So
So I can share with you all that as a result of some of this collaborative work with these new commissions that I've been doing, I've ended up on some listservs for random project collaborations, and one is related to invasive species and some of our tree planting groups in towns. And to be honest, I mean, I'm listening to your, I'm not an expert in this area. I don't know whether those trees in the center are the right species of trees for the center, Bernie. They may look great, but for all I know, they could be terrible, you know. And Max, to your point, you know, I think this is an area where the two groups could again interact on urban heat island effects, you know, kind of what we can do to encourage and recommend certain species of trees to residents as they have to take down trees and replant them, so that they have some knowledge and guidelines of what to put in the place of that. Or they might have a fund they could go to get a tree to plant, you know, instead of having to buy their own dogwood.
And I'd love to have like tree planting demonstration day where, you know, some expert gets a group of people into somebody's front yard and they plant a tree there. And while we watch them plant the tree, they talk about how do you pick what tree and how do you deal with the fact that we all have gas lines and water lines and sewer lines running through our yards. And, you know, all of that. Because I know I would love to replant, and I know my neighbors would too. But we're worried about all that stuff.
I know a great arborist who has a nursery with mature trees. So if you ever want a big tree, I can give you the name of the guy in Granby.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe.
So do we want to wordsmith this now, or shall we vote pending some wording change here to kick it to conservation and environment? Bernie, what's your thought? Do you want me to wordsmith it a little bit?
no, if you made that change, did you make that change? Yeah, recommendation.
I mean, I'll weave it in better than what I said. I don't think very well on the fly.
All right. If you get that, from my perspective, I'd happily sign it if the rest of the commissioners are okay with it. I think honestly, it seems more conservation related than energy related. There's a little bit of overlap, but I think in the spirit of let's do stuff together, I would sign it. I don't want to go around the horn.
I agree with Bernie. That sounds good. That's a yay.
Yay. Okay. Stephen, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm in with you.
All right, David. David's on still.
You're on mute, Dave.
making any hand gestures.
He's breathing.
Well, I'm in, so.
Okay, Max, you're in. Okay,
And I'm in.
all right. I think we're good to go. So it's up to Emily and the gang over there. Do we have a date to reconvene with those guys?
We do not. And did you guys have a little bit of a discussion about the merged commission and your thoughts on that, Bernie, or did you not get to that part yet?
No, we did, and I'll share. Well, I won't drag you through, Catherine. I'll send you this.
Just before we leave that last thing, are we going to have any discussion about how to spend the other 37 million?
That's a good point. That's actually a really good point, Joe.
I mean,
So a lot of that money, as I mentioned, there are projects kind of in the hopper. I do know that one of the big ones that is being talked about is $12.5 million for stormwater infrastructure.
isn't MDC taking care of that with the $1 billion project that they've already charged us for?
No.
That's something that's on the town?
And I don't know the details of this as being the energy specialist. This is something that's being discussed at the town council level and in other standing committees. But I do know that, yes, that there are some projects in the hopper. And again, as I said previously, none of the energy projects that we put forward made it onto that list. Bob and I are planning to revisit that in light of that some of our, but I don't know, I don't know how we'll do on that front because there's a lot of projects competing for limited funds.
I would just say that, given what's happened down in Florida, it's pretty apparent that we have to be concerned about loss of power.
Yep.
And I really think we have to, focus in on microgrids or storage of some sort. We need to plan for the future because it's only a matter of time before those storms are going to come up this way and we're going to be out of power.
So Joe, to your point, well, what was encouraging was at the last Public Works Facilities and Sustainability Standing Committee that I attended, Ben Winograd asked at the end of that meeting, so what are we doing on resilience? And I said, I'm so glad, actually I sent him an email afterwards and I said, I'm so glad you asked that. And I would love if you want to make that a topic for some future meetings. I don't think it just impacts his standing committee. I mean, I think it impacts planning and zoning committees and finance and administration committees. So these things overlap. I did send him the report, and I can share it with you guys, the community building resilience workshop that we did as a town exercise under Sustainable Connecticut back in 2021, I think it was, maybe spring of 2021 under Matt Hart. And I'm not sure what happened to that report because Matt Hart left, but it was an internal planning exercise. I know that Bernie and a few other people participated in it, but it was mainly a lot of staff identifying priorities for resilience strategies. And there has been some other strategic planning exercises done in that area. But I was encouraged that one of our counselors asked about that. And we can try and push that issue as well, Joe, I think. The other thing that I'll give you another little tidbit, we just got this is part of my staff report, on those fresh air projects that we're doing at 9 elementary schools. We just got some cost estimates back on that, and they are double the budget that was allocated for them. And this is after we've already tried to pare them down as much as possible. So there is the capital improvement project budget that was allocated for those 9 schools is completely insufficient. So we're going to have to find some funding elsewhere. I don't know whether it could be this ARPA funding, some of it. It could be some additional funds that on the school side. Otherwise, the amount of funding that's going to be allocated, you know, we won't be able to get through all 9 schools. You know, half of it would be eaten up much more quickly before we get to those, all 9 of them.
Catherine, before you got on, I shared the little field trip from the Saturday. I went out to Buckley School in Manchester, where they had an elementary school, very big elementary school. They retrofitted it. It's net zero. They've got mechanical ventilation, fresh air brought in, energy recovery as part of it, and it was pretty exciting. And so I do want to share that, and I have to get the cost estimate, the cost, and some more than I can't. I shared pictures, but I'd like
Awesome.
to something with the town council, because maybe we're going at this too little. Maybe, I mean, they did Buckley, and their next 2 schools are going to be retrofit to be net zero. So, and they're old. They're old schools. They're as old as Norfolk. They're
Yeah. So I totally agree, Bernie. I mentioned the field trip to Bob and recommended that we take some town councilors on it, or some Board of Ed people. To date, there has not been appetite in West Hartford for major school reconstruction. You
Yep.
know, at Bob and Mike Longo in maintenance and I are pushing more and more on that front every chance we get. You know, when you get budgets back like this, it makes you think, you know, is this kind of add-on approach the way to go, or should we be sitting down and remodeling? You know, but it's a big difference between spending 3 million or 6 million versus I would be interested in what the budget for Buckley is, but I'm sure it's, you know,
I'll make a
around
guess.
20. I'm sure it's around 20 million or so, and Manchester's reimbursement rate is much higher than West Hartford's as well. So you have to factor that in, because they get a much higher state reimbursement for school projects than West Hartford does.
But
Okay, well, I mean, you answered my question, that's all, that we should have a discussion and learn more about what the town's doing relative to that.
Yeah, but Joe, I believe that if we talk more about it, I think there is a strategic role that this commission or a broader sustainability commission could play in advocating for some longer term, deeper retrofits. But it could end up being a long campaign, shall I say?
Is this
It's
something?
not going to be an easy sell. I just warn you.
Is this something we say to the town, like, you know, I know you want to spend this gazillion dollars on the new community center in Elmwood, but wouldn't those dollars be better spent retrofitting some of the schools that we have?
Well, Elmwood's pretty bad too. I have to say, Elmwood was a school. It is one of our worst energy performers, and it does not meet the functional needs of the programs there. Even more so, I would say, than some of the schools.
Catherine, before you move on to the next item there, that the $12.2 million queue, is that visible to, you said the town council's got kind of a queue. Is that queue, if we go to the finance page, can we see that?
I had to dig it out of the town council minutes. I think I can probably share it with you. I will share it with you because it's all public documents. So I will send that around.
I just on a comic note, I don't know if you noticed, but our voices are being closed captioned. And so my last comment when I talk about Q, it's just for the record, I'm not talking about QAnon when I get the show.
I see the big Q there.
It's not what you think.
I see the big Q there.
All right. Yeah, so well, it leads right into federal legislation and funds and Inflation Reduction Act.
Yes. So Bernie, maybe I'll talk about the first one and you can talk about the second one.
Sure.
So I did discover, Max, thank you. I went to that ICLEI webinar that you told me about because we've discovered that there was a boot camp offered through CCMC, I think, Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, for some of this federal funding, but it didn't seem to be very productive. So I attended the ICLEI one instead, and it was very productive. They actually directly pointed you to a spreadsheet where they had done the preliminary allocations of the funding of the energy efficiency block grant piece of some of this funding that's coming down. I think it's about $550 million that's being allocated to the energy and efficiency conservation block grant program. And West Hartford's share of that is $137,000. So it always seems that way, right? There's a huge number at the top, but when it comes down to what your town is actually getting, and any town or city over 35,000 population gets a direct allocation based on a formula. So we will be getting $137,000 that the town's gonna need to decide what to spend that on, within the eligibility requirements of the grant. And ICLEI had some, maybe we don't want to get into this tonight, but we can put it on a future agenda. ICLEI had some ideas about, how that money could be spent to kind of roll forward and further energy efficiency in the future, rather than spending it all on one discrete project. I also kind of floated that idea with Bob Palmer. The last time we got EECBG money, we spent it on a boiler project at Elmwood. Actually, just one particular capital improvement project. So I asked Bob if this time round, it's not as much funding. You can't do a whole lot of capital improvement, which $137,000, and maybe we could brainstorm and have some collaboration with you guys and maybe with social services and some other people to think about how that money can best be spent to improve energy efficiency, either in our town operations or in the community. But that we will have $137,000 coming through that program. So that's a nice thing. And ICLEI had some ideas, which leads into of how that money might be packaged with some of the incentives and financing items in the Inflation Reduction Act, used to either promote those or do some program work, and packaged with some of the measures that are in the IRA, so that that money leads to further savings and further emissions reductions. And Bernie, you've done more research on the Inflation Reduction Act than I have.
I've done some. I bet you we all have done some. I shared in the chat a link, and I'll share it on screen real quick. You may already have seen this, but if not,
It's so cool. This is so cool.
There's a lot of money. This is the piece, from my perspective, that essentially comes down directly from the feds, much of it through IRS tax forgiveness or rebates, however you want to call it. A lot of the other money is going to come through state agencies. So that will be the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, or Department of Transportation, or Housing. It really is a comprehensive bill. So there's stuff in here for solar, there's stuff in here for resiliency, there's stuff in here for biofuels. It really spans the gamut of sort of opportunities. But as Catherine said, we only have a few minutes left. I really recommend this as a great graphic. And I think we want to get this out to our residents. If you're interested in solar, it tells you what it is. Where's washing machines? It tells you all the different things that you can do with washing machines. And then here's where they give I want to put solar on. It tells you, one of the big questions is, should I wait till next year? And it tells you what you get now, and it tells you what you're going to get next year. So it's mostly aimed at we residents. So some of the stuff that Joe was talking about, microgrids, I think we're going to have to kind of wait until this gets more clarity. But this is a great opening piece. Catherine, I think you've initiated the IRA because it comes through so many doors. It's not just energy, and sometimes it's keyed to different kinds of residents, so different socioeconomic levels and stuff like that. So you've initiated in the town, like you're reaching out to social services and finance and housing. So this town should be all over this as best we can. So I'll just stop that. And I just want to double back, Catherine, before you came on. We were talking about resiliency, and one of the questions we had is we have our. Am I still on? I'm hidden. I can't see anybody anymore. There they are. One of the challenges I think we have is this winter. So we had a discussion about what advice ought we sort of get out to residents in terms of preparing for the winter, whether it be in terms of efficiency or getting on budget plans, getting their oil burners and furnaces tuned up, make them aware of where Operation Fuel, how to access that. What was it? CRT, and there was another set of initials there. But I think part of resiliency is that we as a community can help our residents get through what I think is going to be a difficult winter.
So I actually just met with Astrid Calderon in our social services department today along these lines again. And she said, yes, the outreach piece of it is hard. She's done some outreach through the renters rebate program, where she contacts annually the people. She makes sure she goes back to all the people who have signed up for that program, and she sends them mailers with flyers about all the different things. And that was the one she stuck our HeatSmart thing in. She puts in Operation Fuel, she puts all that in and sends it out. And they try and do, but she said there can never be enough outreach, because you never know which program people need and where they are and where they're looking for their information. We also talked about that there doesn't seem to be a place, and I don't know whether this is something we can or should develop, or whether this lives somewhere else, or this should be developed more at a regional or at a state level. There doesn't seem to be a website or a flyer that has all of the energy programs listed in one place, so that, and not just for low income, but for everybody, so that if you are low income, you can see the energy assistance program and the Operation Fuel and all that. But, maybe you're in that Alice bracket where, you can't afford all this stuff, but you're still not eligible for the low income stuff. So, this to you is energy efficiency is important because it can help your budgeting and help your income. But she also says that sometimes people there don't want the stigma of getting help from social services, so they could take advantage of energy efficiency and financing programs and themselves just to improve their own household financial situation. And then in the same place, maybe you don't need that, but you are really interested in electric vehicles and solar. But to have all that in one place so that you can take advantage of all the different pieces or whichever pieces you need. She says she's never seen that kind of thing. And it seems like we're all working on different pieces of it. Go ahead.
I think that's a fantastic observation. I attended one of these deep sort of all day things, and they were showing how Massachusetts shows their rebates for energy efficiency. And they actually have a chart that has every single state program, every local program, every federal program all in one place. So if you're taking an action, it lays it all out. Now, I know we're talking about more close to home, a different set, but I think that's a great idea. I don't know quite how to. I know Stephen was rattling off initials that I don't think I'd heard before, so I clearly don't know everything. It might be interesting to see if we could construct such a thing. You think
Well,
he knows more than we do?
Yeah, well, and then she said once we have that, we need to put a business card on top, like mine or hers or somebody, so that the person knows who to call to get started. So that's she's very much about even if you send that information out, unless there's a person on the other end of it who's going to help walk someone through it, it's very hard to take, and that whatever that person is, whether that person's low income or a regular income person, it's very hard to take that next step unless you have a guide.
I speaking for myself.
What I was referring to with Bernie was the CRT.
CRT.
Community Renewal Team. Yeah.
Community Renewal Team. That's okay. And you had another one too. CAP.
There's Operation Fuel. There's a bunch of different energy assistance things, and I think CRT covers like Hartford, West Hartford, the Hartford area. There's a different one in Bristol and Waterbury and New Haven. And
there are 2 community action agencies for energy. CRT covers our area, and there's another one that she couldn't remember the name of somewhere else. But CRT is our one. We have a person back now. Our person who was assigned to us and has office hours in the town of West Hartford Social Services Department was gone for a while, but we have a new lady. Her name is Kim back, and I'm gonna try and meet with her sometime soon. But Astrid said there's room for exploring what CRT does, what information they gather, what is confidential, and what we could use as resources to follow up on a yearly basis. But there are also gaps in, they have a lot of data on the people who are applying for the programs, and we can make sure that we're keeping them engaged year to year, but then how do you expand that number? How do you grow the number? And then the idea would be, if they are coming to CRT for energy assistance, then, you know, in addition to getting energy assistance, we want to make sure that we're communicating to them that the town would like to help you get off energy assistance, you know, and take advantage of some other programs that would alleviate the need for this in the future. And there aren't enough resources or people at this moment in time to make that leap. So that's a gap that can be filled.
Okay. Catherine, is there a staff report? Do you have anything? You're kind of given a staff report.
Yeah.
If not,
Nothing major. I really wanted to share with you guys the status of the capital improvement projects. You know, that they're coming in at over budget. And that was about it for now.
okay, I'll just say, in the area of public comment, Chris Feely sent around an email. She's interested in, she's not here tonight. I sent the email to you all. She might show up at our next meeting. Talk about an anti-idling campaign, which is, she gave us some examples from other states and the federal level, and I think a town in Connecticut. So just putting it in people's minds.
That is also a Sustainable Connecticut program action. And I think a great intersection, again, between air quality and energy.
Excellent.
One thing I was going to mention, I don't know whether everyone on this group knows, I can send out the link. West Hartford is going to be hosting the Sustainable Connecticut Awards, Certification Awards in November in the Town Hall auditorium. Keeping our fingers crossed, but West Hartford might be, we submitted an application and we will likely be receiving an award for climate leader designation. This is kind of an add-on designation for already certified communities. But that, I think it's November 14th. So all the towns who got 2022 certification will be there receiving awards, and any climate designators. I know of at least a couple of other communities who are applying for that climate leader too, but I don't think there will be very many. This is its first pilot year.
Catherine, will there be food there?
I think it's likely
Just kidding.
there might be some snacks.
Well, I need to rent a tuxedo.
No, it's in the afternoon from 3 to 6, I think, but it'll be a nice opportunity to mingle with some other towns, you know, sustainability groups as well as town officials.
That would be nice. I found out I have jury duty starting in November 10th. So.
Uh-oh.
So what do you say? November
14th.
Okay, and that's a Monday.
Yep, 3 to 6.
3 to 6. Okay.
I'll send out the invitation that came from Sustainable Connecticut. Yeah, if you're not on their newsletter, I would encourage you to sign up for it, because it has lots of kind of cool things, as well as links, you know, to their training and events calendar, which is chock full of cool, usually free webinars and educational seminars if you have time.
But no snacks. No snacks.
No snacks there.
We'll work on that. All right, folks. Before we adjourn, any other comments we ought to put on the table? I'll say, Dave, it's nice to see you again. So I'm glad you made it.
Yes.
Catherine, thank you for coming in. I hope we didn't cut any school night stuff too short.
No.
All right. Well, have good night, everybody. Let's say a prayer for those people down in Florida. It looks like a real Lulu.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is not good.
I,
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
all.
David, thank you for keeping us on track.
You're welcome.
David Mello, it's nice to see you as well. You're still on mute, but I hear that they're shipping refugees up to your island there.
Here we go.
There you are.
I just wanted to make sure that Andrew was taking notes because it will be a quiz. We don't give out that information for nothing.
Yeah, I gotta admire anybody that can sit through our meetings, including you. So thank you. Wait, have you been up on the vineyard at all?
Oh, yeah, all that action that you saw was on our street. The street was closed off by everybody. We had to send one of our own friends up there to guard the property. Yeah, it was a very interesting place.
I'll be doggone.
Hmm.
It's always interesting when you find somebody that is in the news. Well, okay. Well, I'm glad you're okay, and hang in there, and we'll see you soon.
I just have technical problems with this computer, that's all. That's my problem. We'll be with you.
Dave, you're a rocket scientist. We expect you to get over all this.
Thank you.
Good night now.
Good night.
Let's see. I'm not even sure how to log out of this thing. Screen sharing. Stop sharing. Okay, there we go.